Hello there, welcome to Tap into Your Dancing Creativity. This is a free live webinar, and my name is Peja Jovicic, and we're going to discuss today the subject of dancing creativity and what is actually creativity and how you get to develop it. I'm a professional dancer, yoga teacher, and an NLP trainer or a coach. And I've been dancing for 16 years in theaters, and I have over 25 years of experience inside of dance and also different types of dance. I did various of different kinds. And because of that, because of I did various of different kinds, I decided to put them all together and make them the manual into the artistic mind or the art of dance book. Also, I made a yoga for dancers, which is a little bit of a different program that helps dancers to grow and develop. Free material from the course you can find on the following link, and there are some things on my webpage that you can have a look at and find out more about the courses. So Art of Dance is the manual into the dancer's brain that actually explains the process of how do you actually get your art, how do you get there, and how you develop it and how you build it. And one of the things that actually you get in art of dance is also how you get to use your creativity. What are the measurements? So today's subjects. So the purpose of this webinar is to define what would creativity mean for dancers, choreographers, actually artists of all kind, as we're going to cover the basic concepts of creativity, how to apply it and develop it so that you can tap into that sphere of playfulness anytime. Choreographers or dancers will find this actually interesting as it deals with their process, how they make their material for themselves or others. Um, Actually, some learning creativity over online webinar is not some people think it goes. In dance, you don't get to become great dancer online or a choreographer, but in the studio. However, one can actually learn everything else that is important in terms of knowledge. So the platform online enables the discussion and provides the internal resource to flourish and so that you become creative. When we talk about today's subjects, actually, what we're going to talk about are the brainstorming ideas, how to brainstorm ideas, how to think divergently, and actually, what is divergent thinking. We're going to mention the process of how you get to do it, playing mode, being absolutely outrageous and just going for it, uh, by also mastering the process, and ensemble creation, how you put all the things together, how do you make the puzzle from small pieces. Sometimes we don't get this puzzle because the pieces are not clear, and we're just going to make them clear. Okay, so when we speak about creativity and arts, they go hand in hand. They're always together and they're inseparable because creativity is actually the fuel for the arts. You don't have arts if you don't have creativity. Same way, it's the way of making the piece. How you make the piece is because of the creativity that you have and the quality of the creativity that you're using. You could say that the process for the content is creativity. It's the cup and a water concept. Cup in this case would be a creativity. Now, I remember when I was dancing with one Swiss choreographer, I think he was, and he was giving a class and repertoire, and it was a really great guy, and he was really showing nice stuff, and it was really interesting. But when he started to move, and he started to choreograph on the spot, I went like, wow, this is really great because he went out of the blue. He just started to make things out in such a quickly way that I couldn't believe that he was so quick, and his levels of creativity were much in front of all of us as a dance group. And I realized that, and I was like, wow, cool. Well, actually, I can use that. So when I started doing my own piece, I thought like, well, okay, I can actually use some of the stuff that, or at least some of his process to get my own choreography done. And then I found out that I was kind of having my own problems and because I was not as creative. And then I thought, well, actually, you can develop and grow creativity in order to be there. So my training explanation to dancers and choreographers would be actually to develop creativity into a certain level, so that it actually influences your art in a great depth. But when we talk about what actually creativity is, let's define it. So, by the dictionary, creativity is a phenomenon whereby something new and somehow valuable is formed. And arts is a represent an outlet of expression, physical manifestation of the internal creative impulse. Um, so, because I mean, someone is an artist. If someone is an artist, it doesn't mean they're really creative. Seeds of creativity needs to be watered in order to provide with good, tasty fruits. As I just said, the Swiss choreographer that I was working with, he was much in front of us when it comes to choreographing or using his creativity in different ways, and we were not able all to be on the same level. Um, so your ideas are actually ideas and values are combined together that make a spark in your mind and enable your impulse to make some movement. So, and then there's another definition that I found on internet, which is very interesting, and which says, "What is creativity?" And I mean, we said already before in terms of dictionary, but in terms of process, what is it? It's like when you're able to see, hear, and feel inside of you your ideas that actually you want to share with the world in a specific way or in a specific manner. And you probably watch the performance, let's say, from the front of stage. But what happens if you change the perspective of the audience? So you move the seer, for example, to the side, let's say, or you move it to the back. Um, so that's this is where what makes creativity kind of kicks in. So it's imagining, is being able to imagine, being able to change different perspectives, being very playful about your ideas, playing with it like small kids do. Use provocative combinations, using kind of both sides of the brain. Intellect brings you pictures, sounds, and feelings into order, right? um, Being different about something, non-conformity or originality. How original can your ideas be? Does arabesque always has to look like an arabesque? For example, outside the box is when you change the way of a usual thinking and you put it into something else. Problem solver, when you, for example, show a situation which is a problematic situation, then you find a solution through it through dance. Changing dynamics or putting things into a different context that they are usually are. So when you change the context, this will also you will get a different result. But that change is actually creativity. Okay, so let's go on. So, what is your creative IQ? Um, if you're some, let's say, a Mensa guy, it's those clever guys, they're brilliant in math or logic, and they have numbers that they use to define who's clever and how much. If you're one of those guys, it doesn't mean you're good at arts, right? In fact, we have several other brilliant minds which are opposite of logic guys, and to other people they appear weird, but they're able to make really wonderful stuff. Just think about in terms of history. Picasso and Dali and all of those people were really brilliant in their own mind and ideas, but sometimes they wouldn't get along with others. So creative IQ would be very different than the rest of the people. Um, I mean, I have seen somewhere some minds were kind of great for artistic perspective, let's say, but didn't know how to have a relationship, for example, because their sense of themselves was bigger than Africa. However, strictly looked at your creative IQ, it is the only ability of your current state that is limited. So more practice, you become better and better. Better you get to be, and suddenly the things that before you couldn't do, now they're our daily habit. Now let's look at the kids, those small wunderkinds, right? The prodigies of our species. Um, when they're engaged into something, they're there. They're fully. They're playing with that toy or whatever it is for a certain while, and then they changed like this, and they go to other side, and they're engaged into something else fully. So the focus is fully on that. So no one had to learn them how to become creative. They can find creative ideas basically out of nothing. Uh, but still they go, they try, they fall, they cry, and they try again. And then the honesty on their face when they recognize success is absolutely priceless. I see no good reason why we couldn't do the same. Well, I remember when I was learning some painting in school, and I couldn't get an apple on the paper, right? Simply no one has teach me how to paint, and that was it. So my motivation for learning how to do it after went into the trash with the bad apple picture. And since then, I never trusted myself to paint. Even today, I barely never paint or draw any pictures. I mean, if I only knew better, I would recognize that you don't get to learn how to speak another language in the fifth grade or learn how to play an instrument in the school. Rather, finding the best people that know how to do it well. So, who is really creative? So, who really has developed his creative IQ? So that you get it from the best players out there. And think about Mozart was jamming at the age of 4, and no one taught him how to be creative. He just was. So being able to develop your creative IQ and understanding, okay, so your creative IQ, um, what does it do? It can put things together or apart. It can merge different ideas and concepts into one. Defines the usage of your ideas and purpose. How do you want to present them? Browsing through your library of ideas and movements, finding new ways, and redefining old ones. That's what I meant by context change. Playing and being playful about it, going into the zone, and testing if you reached your original goal, which is kind of a check thing. You just go and check, like, does it actually really express what I really want? So something new and somehow valuable is formed in order to get an expression, a physical manifestation. And this is the place where valuable and interesting ideas create some kind of point that focuses your mind and tickles it, making it interesting and touches the audience in some kind of a way. So, depending on what you want to achieve, you want your audience to feel about it. What do you want them to see and think after they saw your idea? Does it have some abstract concept or some story that you want to express? So those are questions that you want to put in your mind and use them once you're doing your things. Okay, and then we have what I call the creative soup. Making a creative soup, and I'll tell you my recipe. My recipe strategy is basically what I have in the fridge. I have many recipe books at home, but I make some lovely recipes depending on what I have inside of my fridge. So I don't necessarily follow the book. I just go and make what's there. And in a similar way, you want to make sure that what's in your fridge, it's already prearranged and bought on time, so that what's in the fridge is always available and you can make a good recipe out of it. And to me, those are ideas and concepts, having a goal and a purpose, and the browsing moments, which creates the performance that you're looking for, where you use your creativity in a specific way. Okay? So brainstorming your library. So, storming through the potential of your mind and through the library that you already have. And our minds have great similarity to library, and almost no one knows which books are there. They're not even aware of the knowledge that lays inside. Now, big number of us are busy on focusing what we didn't find in our minds and that we wanted. It doesn't seem to me as a good idea to believe that you don't have a capacity. It is easy to talk yourself into it when results are not impressive. But as any other work, a practice makes the master great, and not the other way around. But you might ask yourself, what if I don't know how to, or I'm not enough, I have no, or whatever you say. So creating the sentence from the words that you have is a good way to start. So organizing your thinking about your library. What is actually useful to cover? Creating the steps in the process. Determine the facts that you know are there, like defining your range of movements and technical ability, which might be unique to you or the dancers that you're working with. Discovering the points in your thinking that you have that have black holes, let's say, which I have every now and then, or being critical and honest about your possibilities. Allowing yourself the green zone, going in, establishing and connecting as many dots that you have previously discovered together. So creating the sentence from the words that you have, as I was saying before, is like learning another language. You first start with bad words. Well, you usually do when you learn another language. Now, actually, I mean by building the vocabulary first. When you build the vocabulary first, you get to speak certain language, and you get to be comfortable speaking. And maybe the first ideas that you're having won't be amazing, but a good introduction into further thinking and practice. And baby speaks a couple of words if you think about it, or it simply doesn't, or just screams, but it's very effective in moving their parents. So that's something that it's kind of good to think about it. You might not be able to say much, but what you say might have great impact. Okay, and then we move to the body and the parallel thinking, what I call the parallel thinking. When you see the picture, so how many purposes is to a paper clip? Does it just one, or there are many? For what kind of things you could um, use a paper clip? And where the boundaries of the thinking on specific dance, for example, or a paper clip? Can we provoke a different approach or a purpose by consciously? Can we do that? Okay. Um, I mean, we all know that we know what the, for example, we all know what's the paperclip for, right? Does it have to be just that? You can, for example, use it for getting your small card on the phone to open up the card, or some of you might know the life hacks that you can find on YouTube and so on. And actually, it's a very interesting point. There's a study from Ken Robinson on divergent thinking, which says that the best people in divergent thinking are the small kids, as I mentioned before. And they're able to find purposes for a paperclip that many wouldn't come up with. So having this idea as a starting point, how many body movements, body parts can you find that have a different use? Classical example is the men always have to lift the woman in ballet, or it goes the other way around, or man lifting man. Another example is that they use for the aeroplanes. You can, for example, put a plane so that it lands on its belly, so that the pilot has to sit up, or it can be also be down, right? So being kind of very brave in this step is to break the walls and boundaries of what is actually okay, or what we think is actually okay. Okay. So how many movements can you find to express something? Is there one or many? Okay, so this is the time to actually introduce provocation. So this is the process of how you can actually do it. Introduce provocation. And what is a provocation? Provocation, or let's say PO, is a term that Edward de Bono, father of lateral thinking, is using. And he offers an idea that you can provoke old ideas and create opposites or new ideas and put them on an old place. So We gave an example. Does the pilot cabin in the plane has to be up in the up front part of the plane, or it can be, let's say, on the back of the plane or the outside of the plane? Or can you measure the building from distance with your fingers, and you can also put it on building on the floor and then measure it? Can you take the tip of the iceberg and place it into the water and let the other side on top? So freely placing the provocation on that idea, enlarging and discovering the provocation until it gets manifestational proportions, and checking the results whether it fits the goal. Does it really do good? Do you really feel kind of creativity kicking in? Is it interesting? Is it kind of very different? And the step number one for sure would be determining provocation that would go in other direction than that idea. And why not? The question is, why not using it? Then one of the most interesting things is to go in this so-called playing mode, which allows you actually to be outrageous, absolutely outrageous. You provoke ideas and see things as material to play with, like kids do. They take these gummies and they just make shapes out of them. There are no rules. So you're going into the zone of your creativity without limits. So how would you know that you are in the zone, right? And this is when your outer game and inner game are working together. And this is action flows with an effortless excellence. And that's what's actually really cool about playing in the zone. And some indicators that you're focused in the zone could be feeling of real confidence about the absence of anxiety and self-doubt, no fear of fear or self-consciousness about cheating your goals, focus on performing beautifully and excellently. Like whatever you make, you know it's going to come out beautiful and excellent. And performance comes without effort, so without having to think about it. As soon as you put your logical mind into it, you start being outside of the playfulness, and playfulness is about something else. It's about putting the walls down, making a new road. Okay, and then reaching the personal mastery. Um, when we talk about mastery, it's one of the usual questions that comes actually around, is that if I'm not good at it, how do I master being playful and creating material? Anything that you actually start in life for the first time is not easy in the beginning. Now, remember, driving bicycle for the first time in life, or learning to swim, or anything else, you were not an expert straight away, right? You were building skill for some time, learning how to balance, where to put your foot, how to brake. You were chunking each section, excuse me, into small pieces. And here we are doing the same thing. So mastering is something that comes only with practice. And speaking of mastery, it comes also in chunks or stages, or what I call new plateaus. And once you learn that one set of skills and you become good at it, you step on another level where you realize deeper dimensions and you want to play with them. So mastery is a constant process of ongoing practice and further development. And more about stages of mastery you can also find on my podcast session, which will give you an exact idea of how does the mastery happens. It takes some time to explain, but there are some kind of things that you can see. Um, so the process, the exact process, would be deciding the direction where you're heading, and establishing and hacking elements of the skill. Practice until you're good at it, reaching the next level or plateau, and connecting dots. So skills with different ideas, what I just said, and practice for life. Because the masters are really not taking it short term. They're really making it long term goals, and they decided to practice something on a very, very long time. So, team puzzle. Use potential of minds and bodies. Set the goal for the group if you're working with a group, and allow others to even jump out of your frame. have navigation to where you want to go, keeping the big picture. Dancing on the borders of the borders that you have set and pushing for the limits. Cleaning, sorting, filtering, and arranging puzzle and arranging puzzles so that it becomes your picture, the picture that you actually want. And then simply checking. You see, one of the most interesting things with working with people is that in dance you get to learn from others enormously and get wonderful ideas from them. So my suggestion is to gratefully welcome creative spark from others, as this is your lucky charm. If you're choreographing, you will use the, others as your creative well of ideas that will take your ideas, shape and reshape into something that you maybe didn't even have in mind, but turned out to be great. Let them create. Maybe you can use it well. You can see what you're going to do with it. It might go in a completely different direction, which is absolutely fine. Acknowledge them for their work and their contribution. Also, at the same time, as I said before, have navigation to where you want to go, keeping the big picture, because puzzle is a great way of knowing what you want. Um, Dealing with the small pieces in such a way that you always have the big picture in mind, and you can always dive into small chunks as long as you know where you're heading and how far you can go. Where is the border in the development in the things that you're doing? So when you want to push the limits, you want to find out how much you can push the limits. What are the things that you can do, or the people that you're working with can do or cannot do? What have they and you learned in that process? So this is the learning check. This is when you kind of check what you have done or what they have done, and is there some learning happening out of that? And then we come up shortly to a summary. So we discuss the concepts of creativity. We have an application in arts. What's the application in arts? We have the understanding creative intelligence, how we can perceive creative intelligence. We have the ideas creation, allowing richness, diversity, how to engage into the process, being playful like small kids, like Mozart and any other, and being a master, reaching the envelope, going for the limits and seeing how far you can actually stretch the whole thing, and being able to work with a team and making the big picture. And then we have some, let's say, common challenges which are happening very often, and people misunderstand things. And then we have some common challenges, which are usually things that we didn't understand well, or we don't trust ourselves, and so on and so forth. And these are the things that usually come. First of all, is misunderstanding creativity and potential. Um, Especially other people potential. All people have tremendous potential, and often dancers will not be used appropriately in the creation process, and they sit in the corner and they just look at you, and it's not a really good idea. Remember that you know, or someone else has much more to offer than it might seem. It is just ideas anyway, so ideas change all the time, and you don't have to make a religion out of it. Um, Not knowing where to start, that's a common thing. Sometimes when I was doing a couple of choreographies here and there, I didn't know where to start. And I would suggest to start with the idea that you know the best, or you can even borrow some, so that you go into the zone, and from there you can build up as the mastering process takes time, and it's a normal thing. It is um, sometimes we have black holes, and when they happen, you don't know where to go. You're again like not knowing on the start, like having a black hole with the ideas. Okay, I did the movement, but where to go from there, or how do I go on the next level? To me, it is a good practice to actually write down the process and write your ideas when they come. This will reduce black holes, and and later on, when you come back to the process again, you can just keep going where you stopped because you wrote it down. Um, you have to allow yourself to be playful, to be like those kids, to be like Beethoven or Mozart. Um, you have to be there like 100% inside of yourself. Break the personal boundaries and maybe even other people's boundaries if they are limiting you, if it is appropriate, of course. Um, Knowing personal boundaries is, of course, the very important thing, and how much you can reach and what you can do for others. So know your own, know your own boundaries, and being confident about developing them. Defining the path that you're taking. I think it's probably one of the very important ones. Sometimes people lose track where they're heading, and look at your creative potential, like a bird from up, and see the big picture, see it from all aspects, and then feeling good about them. Um, Being a hacker instead of a master. A lot of people are hackers instead of masters, and a lot of us try to hack things very quickly, and then we think we are great at it. But actually, mastering process, it actually does take time, and it takes practice, and that's just the way it is. And if you really want to be good at it, don't be a hacker, be a master. Um, excuse me. Um, the thing with hackers is that they lose motivation very easily. When they learn something good enough, but they don't keep developing it further on. Mastering is opposite of that. Is making you an expert because you fail many times and you have a motivation to go on. And basically, you become an expert on a subject. Sharing ideas and being okay with failing to be accepted. Um, when you share your ideas, you have to be okay that you might not be accepted. Some ideas are simply welcomed in our society, and sometimes they're not, and they're appreciated or sometimes not appreciated, which is okay. People have different opinions about everything, and it doesn't mean it is right. It is their opinion, and maybe it is a wake up call for you to change your ways. Maybe you're doing something that it's inappropriate. um, this also happens, and it's a normal thing, and you want a healthy critical um, work. You want to be also somewhat critical to yourself in terms of recognizing your mistake, acknowledging your mistakes, and simply go on. Use the feedback for good things, how to change things in a good manner. So choose the progress instead of ego. And then there are some questions and typical questions that arise when one thinks about creativity inside of dancing. And to me, those I have some answers to it that I think they're appropriate. And so let's go start with the first one. What movements can I allow myself? And you can basically allow yourself um, everything that doesn't harm you or others. If you think that you're able to do that movement, and it's interesting, and it creates it's kind of a flow thing, go for it. I mean, why waste your movements? Um, many dancers get to try something out and then injure themselves. So taking care, to me, first of security, right? To me, that's the really important thing. If someone likes it is it's another thing. If someone likes. Okay, and when we talk about um, when we talk about and then there are some typical questions, and to me, the answers that are necessary. And then there are some questions that usually arise when one talks about creativity and dance. So, what movements can I allow myself to do? And I think you can allow yourself whatever you find interesting that doesn't harm you or others. Many dancers get to try something out and injure themselves easily. So taking care first of security is probably a good thing. And whether someone likes it or not, it's another question. But you want to really make sure that you don't get injured or the other people stay also safe as much as as much as it's possible. Uh, I have no ideas. What should I do? Um, Black spot to me is a typical thing, um, and many choreographers have that. For but if you think if you think about it, it's a seed that also needs water, and you can just when once you have the black spot, you can simply stop for a second or for some moments, and then come back to the come back to it again once you have when you're creative again. The thing is that your creativity will blossom when you create the environment for growth of your creativity. So once you're in a good surrounding, surrounded with good ideas, good people, um, it will kick in again. And how do you sorry, outrageous daring versus competence, that's also a very common thing. um, the golden rule to me is to push the envelope, right, of possibilities and the capacity that you have available, and have competence in that you can do it securely and easily. So if you think about it, less is more, and better ideas create actually better results. Um, how do you become a master at it? You become a master at anything um, by practicing it. As a dancer, you already know that. When you practice in a good way, you get good results. You know the process, and you feel securely about it. You feel secure about your skill by creating new ideas, and you will become much more profound, more practice you have. And my group doesn't follow, and this also happens sometimes. Sometimes people don't agree with us, and they don't like our ideas or the way we do arts for whatever reason. But if you did everything fine, if you follow the process, if your content is okay and you didn't offend someone, you have nothing to be scared about. People don't like something for their own reasons, which you not necessarily have to worry about. If your ideas are nicely made and they're there to simply push the border, to push the envelope to the front, you're on a good way. Um, it's very interesting with the Swiss choreographer that I was working with. He was giving us. He was interesting, but he would really try to push ideas, and some people found that offending. But that's the purpose of art, to go out there and get it and change the things in such a manner that they have a different meaning. Um, the thing is that um, you have to enable yourself to make your mind grow. And Leonardo da Vinci said once that you cannot be just a painter. You have to be a poet, a sculptor, a musician, and many other things in order to be a painter. And to me, that's a wonderful way to be an artist. Is because you're engaging yourself in other things, and new ideas are born from new experiences. So he said, the way to have a complete mind is to study the science of art, study the art of science, develop your senses, especially learn how to see and feel, and realize that everything connects to everything else. And I would like to actually finish with an idea, because once you realize that your mind can grow in new fields, you can use this, what we discussed tonight, and put a new frame around it and use it in your practice, whether you're making choreographies or you're just doing choreographies. You can find new ways of creating things. And I would also like to just to let you know that my coming subjects for live webinars that I have, Mastery of Dance, Health and Dance, dance coaching, and then I will also cover again the art of dance and yoga for dancers. Those are all different subjects that you can find actually in the art of dance as a program. I would suggest for you to come and check what I actually have inside of Art of Dance, and also for the participators of the webinar, you can actually get a coupon, which is a 10% off. And I would suggest you to go and check the material now and let me know how you like it. Thank you very much for tonight's presence, and I hope to see you sometime soon. Have a good night.